we turn our attention to the semiconductor sector, looking at names like Nvidia set to report next week. AMD making the big acquisition to kick off the week and try and compete even better against Nvidia. Let's bring in our panel. Lucas Keh is with us, semiconductor analyst at Third Bridge, and Ryan Shrout, Futurum's president at Signal 65. Thank you both for being with us. So Lucas, look, we had the big acquisition this week from AMD of ZT Systems. And that was a big deal because that will help them to sort of really try to catch up to Nvidia, but Nvidia is still growing too. Some of your thoughts?
And I think you put it great. I think it's a good attempt in trying to catch up. Obviously, as you mentioned, they are still quite behind the market leader, Nvidia. But we're seeing AMD make the necessary investments in both their AI software ecosystem, as well as now kind of taking a recognition that the industry is moving more towards a system-level approach. Therefore, targeting a company like ZT Systems, which some might say is a bit unexpected, but it's certainly a step in the right direction.
Yeah, understood. Ryan, how do you feel?
I think the acquisition that they announced for ZT is maybe less about competing directly with NVIDIA and more about helping them continue down their path of kind of this open ecosystem approach, but still trying to get into that verticalized market, right? What NVIDIA has done to perfection is own everything from the chip to the infrastructure to the deployment in many instances. AMD tends to be more on the side of working with partners and kind of close partnership relationships to get some of that done. It's less expensive, it's less risky on their part. But what ZT does for them, it allows them to go one step further than just deploying chips, and now they can offer kind of white box system options for a lot of their partners. And I think they're still adamant, and Lisa has said this during some of her interviews yesterday, that they don't want to step on partners' toes in the process.
Yeah, we had her on recently. We were talking about the findings of that whole research, and a lot of it was all about GPUs and CPUs and telecom and all these different sectors using AI too. Not only IT and telecom, but also finance and insurance and so on and so forth. The Amex, for example, really incorporating AI into the workforce. Lucas, where do you see the growth happening? I mean, you mentioned data centers, for example. What kind of names are you watching really closely?
Sure. When it comes to the customer end, it's clear that the hyperscalers, major cloud players like a Google, Amazon, Microsoft, even a Meta, are still kind of dominating that AI demand as well as that GPU supply and allocation. But as that adoption increases, we can certainly expect that to trickle down into more enterprise and smaller to mid-sized companies that are going to grow that need for an AI-specific application, whether that be an inference or even training, and have it a bit more specialized to their specific business needs.
Yeah, understood. Ryan, when you think about the competitive landscape, and we're looking at how AMD is handling all of this, some of your thoughts about some of the other players. Are they the up-and-comers that we're not really focusing on enough?
I think there probably are some. AMD is still very clearly a number two in the GPU space. GPUs tend to be what we think about when we talk about AI performance and AI infrastructure capabilities. Intel still has a role to play here. They've obviously had a lot of kind of downward trajectory over the last several years. They need to do they have some work to clean up on that, but their Gaudi infrastructure could be a credible third player here. They have some benefits in terms of performance per watt, and power we know is a really critical part of any discussion of AI infrastructure. I also think, if you look at the custom silicon from Microsoft or Amazon or Google, right, all these kind of custom AI infrastructure that they're building is an interesting part of the equation as well. How much they're willing to invest themselves and kind of design their own silicon, continue to iterate on it, and compete against the likes of NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel, I think is going to be a really interesting kind of 12-month story to watch.
Yeah. And Lucas, what kind of story are you think we're going to hear? What are going to be some of the headlines from Nvidia? I know we had some chip delays, but growing and ever changing those chips, and now everybody wants the newer chip, and they don't necessarily want the older chip. What kind of themes do you think we'll hear from the earnings next week? Will it be good news, do you think?
Right. I think we can expect to see continued data center growth for Nvidia, but as you mentioned, we've recently heard about some of those delays in the Blackwell generation of chips. Obviously, Nvidia and AMD both kind of taking that path of a one-year cadence for their newest accelerators. I think it also, on the other hand, presents an opportunity for AMD. We're hearing that they can take anywhere from 10 to 15% on the high end of that total data center GPU market by the end of this year. And next year, given some of these hiccups from Nvidia, could potentially be in the low 20% range. So I think those are two key factors to keep an eye on. We're hearing anywhere from 4 to 6 month delays, given some of the packaging complexities we're seeing with CoWoS L and B200. So maybe mid 2025 is kind of a conservative estimate as when we could start to expect some type of volume usage or deployments within data centers.
Yeah, thank you for that, Lucas. And then really last but not least, Ryan. How do when you look at the public and you think about AI, and a lot of folks are in such a learning curve at this point, how do we integrate, how do we penetrate a bigger, wider market share and audience and get everybody up? And there are people who use ChatGPT every day and those who have never heard of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see more AI adoption and penetration into general consumer use cases, but it probably might not even be called AI, right? When I look at this kind of infrastructure change and kind of the software paradigm change, it's really just the evolution of programming, the evolution of how we interact with our devices, whether it be smartphones or laptops, or how our devices communicate with the data center. I think it's some people think it might be happening slowly. I think it's happening deliberately, and more people are integrating with AI today that they probably don't recognize across their smartphones and laptops and what they're seeing in the data center space. I think how these companies are kind of today racing into the adoption of AI is still an important first step to enable the software developers in this kind of broad ecosystem of software engineers to have access to that computing capability. And until that access is more ubiquitous, we won't see the really kind of drastic society shifting type changes that I know are going to become.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you both, Lucas Keh and Ryan Shrout. Thank you.